everybody, this is Perch. So, two viewer questions in one video. Well, the first question, I really was struggling. Can I make a reasonable length video out of this? No matter how much I tried, no matter how much I thought about it, I couldn't. I couldn't get to a point where I could fill up time. And that question for that video was: do you think that the writers have to be able to identify with core qualities of being a hero in order to write heroes? And the answer to that is, I mean, it helps. Yeah. Yeah, I think it should. I think if you're going to write characters that are, self-sacrifice and do heroic acts, I think you need to have at least some sense of heroism. Otherwise, it all depends on how well you can, mimic, what you see from heroic behavior from others. There's this whole article about, self-functioning sociopaths. One of the things that they do is that they're able to basically mimic what normal humans are like, what normal people are like. They're able to kind of, clone it. They don't feel it inside, but they're so good at being able to pretend that nobody notices. And I guess there's probably some truth to that. If you're a writer and you just do not have any sense of what heroism is on any level, you fake it. And if you're good at your job, you fake it well. But honestly, I mean, I think this question, I don't think the person asking this question was, I think they had more question to ask that they didn't get to. And I think the question they were really trying to ask is, do you think that some of the people writing comics today have no idea of what it's like to write a hero? And I think, yeah, probably some of them. I mean, that's why, the definition of what it means to be a hero changes. That's why writers will come in and be like, well, saving the world and saving the galaxy and defeating evil, multiversal clones of the Joker and all this kind of stuff. I mean, that's okay, but how does that help the homeless? That's what being a true hero is. I mean, I think that's where you're seeing people just kind of shift around what hero means. They're trying to shift it around to a way that better identifies with them, that they can kind of relate to. But I think it helps. I always think about it in terms of myself. If I was trying to write a heroic character and I had no idea what it meant to be heroic, I think I would do a pretty lousy job. I think most people would. So, as a customer, I'm hoping the people writing the heroes know what heroism means. But, there you go. So that's kind of the answer to that one. There's probably a longer video in there. I think I'd be just repeating the same point 800 different ways. And people get enough of that anyway from these videos. So we'll get to the second question. The second question is one that has a little bit more, at least to me, a little bit more nuance to it, a little bit more depth to it. And that is, do you think that people get tired of comics naturally? As they get older, you run out of what you feel are original ideas and you just get bored of comics. Is this a natural phenomenon that everyone faces? And I think there is some truth to that question. I think partly yes. I do think there's such a thing as, if you started reading comics at 8 and now you're 30, there's a certain kind of The Simpsons did it kind of phenomenon that comes in where you've seen kind of the big beats, you've seen how some of these stories can go, and nothing seems as good. And that's because in comics, there is a bit of magic to experiencing it for the first time. I think a lot of you probably, if you close your eyes, you can remember some of the first comics you read. You can probably remember, if not the first comic you read, the first great comic you read. The first time you sat down, you're like, holy shit, I didn't realize that this is what comics could be like. And I mean, for me, it's all the ones you'd expect, though. I remember, feeling that way when I hit the Dark Phoenix saga of the X-Men. I'm just like, wow, this is incredible. I remember feeling that way with Watchmen. And what's interesting is I don't think Watchmen is that amazing of a story. I don't think it's the most remarkable end-all be-all of comics. I think in some ways it's not its fault, but I think a lot of people took the wrong lessons from Watchmen and regurgitated it 800 different ways. I think that, but the first time I read The Watchmen, I was like, wow, this is incredible. I'm reading something truly unique, truly original, truly amazing. And I felt that way about lots of comics. I'm sure right now, if you thought about it, you can come up with your own. And by the logic of this question, it's been a while since I read a comic that made me feel that way. It happens from time to time. I definitely come across things I really, really enjoy. No, I'm not kissing his ass because he's been on the channel, but when I read White Knight, I remember feeling like, wow, this is something really special here. And but that feeling doesn't come up in the same frequency that it came up before. And in many cases, some of the stuff that's wowed me entirely is older stuff that I've come across. I recently, it's how I felt going through One Piece, of just especially when you get to like Innie's Lobby and the Marineford arc and some of that's kind of, I mean, that the Marineford arc is just jaw dropping. It's one of those moments you get to it. Like, I know some people are reading One Piece by recommendation of this channel, and I'm glad you are. It's fun, but some of you might be going, man, I mean, really, is it? All I can say is stick with it, man. You hit Marineford like that. That's one of the greatest things that's been done. Just incredible work that goes into that. But as you get older and as you've seen a lot of this stuff, the first times these moments don't come as often. And it's easy to chalk it up and say, well, the quality of comics has gotten worse. And in many cases, I think there's some substantive truth to that. I think there's still plenty of good comics out there, but I also think that comics exist to serve a little bit of a different purpose today. I think even the most hardcore defender, like we'll interview Ron Mars and we'll bring him on here and we'll say, but the culture of creating comics in the 90s is different from the culture of creating comics in 2021. It's very different. It's more business to it. There's more need to tie into things that aren't just comics. The patience is much different. A writer isn't, there is no world where writers like tell your story after 100 issues. No, nobody's saying that. So it is a different culture for sure. But what happens is that there's this natural pull. This is where nostalgia comes in. So in many cases, what corporations and companies have figured out is that if they can't recreate if they can't create new amazing comics, what they can do fairly easily is to tap into nostalgia. So they're not giving you kind of the same comic, but they're giving you the feels. So what they're trying to do is do less of creating something new and original, and instead create a little tunnel to when you last remembered feeling excited about something original. This is what Marvel has done when they're like, hey, let's have Rob Liefeld come out and do a Deadpool story, like a one-shot. Now, nobody's expecting that one shot to be one of the greatest comics you've ever read, but they are expecting it to trigger something in your brain that gets you to remember the fun and excitement of the 90s when, Liefeld was on New Mutants and Jim Lee was on X-Men, and like it was a crazy time. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to tap you into that feeling. And nostalgia has gotten this kind of bad rep by people who I guess resent the fact that we're always clinging on to the past. Well, but the reality is, everybody clings on to the past at some point. Everybody. A lot of the people, the millennials, the group right now who's like, hey, you should kill the past and live in the now. Let's check in with them in about 30 years. I'll bet. In fact, we don't even have to, because we see some of these people endlessly chirping about how great The Last Jedi was. Remember how amazing The Last Jedi was? Congratulations. You are now feeling nostalgia. You are now feeling, I thought we were supposed to kill the past. Well, guess what? Last Jedi is now several years in the past. So what? Are we still going to kill it? Or now we want to keep it because we like this particular past? That's how nostalgia works. I'm Gen X, solidly Gen X, and I like things from my time. I guarantee you, I like Nirvana. I moved up to Seattle. I moved up here, got to be in this area for a few months, see Kurt Cobain, and then he shot himself, and then that was over. But I like Nirvana. I'll turn on Nirvana. I feel that I can remember the feelings of that time in my life. It's a good time. Um, that's my nostalgia. That's what I like, and there's nothing wrong with playing to it, because it is a natural phenomenon that as we get older, the newness wears off of a lot of different things, and suddenly it's we need new content. And so nostalgia is one way to kind of keep the cycle alive. So yeah, I do think there's some truth that things kind of naturally atrophy and things feel worse over time. But I also feel like that's not a horrible thing. I don't think that's anything to kind of bitch and scream and yell about. It's normal human behavior, and we all kind of face it. So yeah, I think it helps. If you know what a hero is, it helps to write heroes. And yeah, I do think that there's an effect where people age out of some of this stuff. And that's normal too. I also think, in many cases, comics are not as good as they used to be. But maybe that's my nostalgia talking. I don't know. You let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe. And thanks for listening.